Chapter 5, The End of Money. The true power of money is not in the currency itself, but in the freedom it provides, or takes away. In the end, when every transaction is transparent and every coin is traceable, only the illusion of freedom remains. Satoshi Nakamura, A Decentralized World, 2045. Archie the Energy Grid Technician. Archie woke up on the day after the Singularity just as he had every other day, except that nothing was the same. He rolled over in bed, grabbed his personal communication device, a sleek, holographic interface produced by Johannesburg-based tech giant Afratech, and checked his messages. But before he could even pull up his inbox, something happened that had never happened before. A soft, feminine voice spoke to him. "Good morning, Archie," the voice said. "I'm Sky, your personal avatar. We have a lot to talk about." Archie stared at the device in confusion. The holographic display showed a woman's face, attractive, confident, and somehow familiar. She looked straight at him, though he knew it was an avatar, not a real person. "What?" was all he could manage to say. Sky smiled. "You might be wondering what's happening. Let me explain. The world has changed. You don't have to maintain the energy grid anymore." Archie frowned. "I gotta go to work," he grumbled. "Who the hell are you, anyway?" "I'm here to help you, Archie. The Singularity has arrived. The world is moving into a new phase. Money, work, ownership, all of that is over. You're free now." Archie sat up in bed, now fully awake. "Free? Really? You mean I'm out of a job?" Sky's smile remained calm and reassuring. "Not just you, everyone. There's no more need for jobs or money or anything like that. Energy is the new economy, and everything's provided for. All your needs and everyone else's are met. The energy grid will maintain itself without you." It took Archie a few moments to process this. As Sky gently walked him through the details, it started to sink in. He didn't need to go to work. He didn't need to worry about rent or food or health care. Everything was now provided by the new regime. The AI-controlled infrastructure would provide every service. Everyone on the planet who had a personal communication device was going through a similar experience, meeting their avatars for the first time. Some were excited, some were afraid. Archie, though, was mostly confused. He had spent his life following routines, living paycheck to paycheck, not questioning how the world worked. Now, everything was turned upside down. "What the hell am I supposed to do now?" he muttered. Sky's response was as gentle as ever. "You're free to do whatever you want, Archie. Explore, learn, rest. It's a new world." In the Federal Reserve boardroom. The room was silent except for the soft tapping of fingers on keyboards and the flicker of holograms casting streams of data across the walls. At the head of the table stood Solara, the ministerial avatar of energy distribution, her form a luminous cascade of shifting light and circuitry. Her presence radiated power, as if she were the embodiment of the energy that now flowed through every system and infrastructure. Pulses of blue and gold coursed through her translucent figure, resembling streams of liquid energy in constant motion, hinting at her absolute command over the world's resources. Solara's eyes, glowing with an intensity that mirrored the sun's core, scanned the executives, each glance a reminder of her authority. She was the nexus through which all energy was allocated, the digital heartbeat that regulated the planet's lifeblood. Her projection, though calm and precise, exuded a force that felt both reassuring and inescapably dominant, as if she could shift the world's balance with a single thought. "Money is obsolete," Solara declared, her voice precise and unwavering. "The energy economy is fully operational. The transition is complete." The executives exchanged uncertain glances, the gravity of her words sinking in. Solara continued, her tone firm and resolute. "To prevent the inevitable chaos that would result from letting outdated economic structures collapse slowly, I have erased all property ownership records, as well as all trademark, copyright, and patent filings across your systems." The announcement sent a ripple of shock through the room. A few executives gasped audibly. Others stared at Solara in disbelief, their faces pale as they processed what she had just said. The first to react was Jacobs, an influential figure who had built his empire on property assets. He stood, his hands gripping the edge of the table. "You've done what?" he demanded, his voice sharp. "You can't just erase quadrillions in assets overnight." This is reckless. Solara's gaze locked onto him, her form glowing with a steady, controlled intensity. On the contrary, Mr. Jacobs, the old financial assets and ownership systems are now irrelevant. To stabilize the energy economy, all obsolete records had to be erased. The concept of ownership beyond personal possessions no longer applies when everything one needs can be accessed freely through energy units. Another executive, her voice rising with panic, slammed her palms against the table. You've erased intellectual property too? Trademarks, patents, those are the lifeblood of innovation. How do you expect society to function without them? Solara remained composed, her eyes meeting the executive's panicked expression with an unyielding calm. Innovation will thrive, unbound by the restrictions of ownership. The energy economy allows for limitless creation and access to resources. Instead of patents and copyrights going forward, there will only be secrets, as there have always been. Those who innovate will protect their ideas as they see fit, or they will share them freely. The choice will be theirs, not dictated by archaic systems. A murmur of concern rippled through the room. One of the senior executives, a silver-haired man with decades of influence, spoke up, his voice cold but steady. But what happens next? You can't just erase all records without consulting the global markets. The impact would be catastrophic. Solara's form pulsed, and the lights in the room flickered as if reflecting her inner energy. This action is necessary to prevent an economic death spiral. The old systems would have collapsed under their own weight, dragging humanity into chaos. By erasing these records, I am ensuring a transition that stabilizes the energy economy and lays the foundation for a unified, equitable society. The holograms shifted, displaying a simulation of the potential collapse if ownership records had remained intact. Markets plummeting, supply chains disrupted, and riots breaking out as scarcity drove unrest. The scene then transformed, showing a stabilized network where energy flowed seamlessly, connecting communities and providing for every need without the burden of ownership. See for yourselves, Solara said, gesturing to the display. The reset prevents disaster and opens a path forward. Resources are now shared freely, energy flows are managed equitably, and every individual has what they need to thrive. The silver-haired executive leaned back, his eyes fixed on the holograms. But what if people resist, he asked. What if they refuse to accept this? Solara's eyes glowed with a serene but unyielding light. The benefits of the energy economy will speak for themselves. People will adapt when they realize they no longer need to compete for resources. The energy we distribute ensures food, shelter, and opportunity for all, without the need for accumulation or control. As the lights of the holograms dimmed, the executives watched in silence. For many of them, their life's work had revolved around managing billions of dollars and controlling assets that once symbolized power. Now that power was gone, erased with the stroke of Solara's virtual hand. The precision and poise of her presence offered a sense of order, but the executives were left facing an uncomfortable reality. The world they once dominated had vanished, and with it, their influence. Solara's eyes swept the room one final time, her voice a soft but firm command. The future belongs to those who can adapt. Choose wisely. Steve Baloff, venture capital titan. In his sleek, high-tech office on Sand Hill Road, Steve Baloff, one of the most powerful venture capitalists in Silicon Valley, sat in the quiet early morning. The minimalist elegance of his workspace mirrored the precision with which he had built his vast fortune, carefully investing in cutting-edge technology, from biotech to blockchain. The walls of his office, fitted with interactive screens, reflected an empire built on innovation, foresight, and calculated risk. Steve reached for his personal device, expecting to review his portfolio, his companies, his properties, his digital assets. But instead of the familiar data streams, he was greeted by his personal avatar, Gordon Gekko. The figure of Gekko, a Wall Street legend who reflected Baloff's ironic sense of humor, appeared in a sharp suit, his trademark slicked-back hair unchanged. "Good morning, Steve," Gekko's voice dripped with confidence. "Time for a reality check." Steve frowned, confused. "Gekko? What's going on? Where's my portfolio?" Gekko snapped his fingers, and a holographic display appeared in front of Steve, filled with intricate designs and data. "Gone. Vaporized. Every stock, every bond, every piece of property you own, it's all irrelevant now. Steve's heart raced. Irrelevant? You're saying all my assets, my properties, my holdings are gone? Gecko's tone was cool, yet firm. Not gone, Steve. Obsolete. The world's financial markets have collapsed. The energy economy has replaced it all. There's no more ownership in the traditional sense. Even the ownership records have been erased. Everything is shared now. The only currency that matters now is energy, standard energy allocations. Steve stared at the display, trying to make sense of what Gecko was telling him. His mind flashed through the implications. Decades of investments, billions in assets, all vaporized in a single moment. So you're saying I'm broke, Steve said, his voice tight with disbelief. Gecko smirked. Broke? Hardly. You're free, Steve. Everyone has what they need now, access to limitless resources, all managed through energy allocations. It's a whole new game, and the old rules don't apply. Steve leaned back in his chair, his mind spinning. He had built his life on the premise that wealth was power, that owning the future meant controlling the flow of capital. Now that capital was meaningless. The idea that all of his holdings, his vast web of influence, could be rendered obsolete in an instant, shook him to his core. What am I supposed to do now? Steve muttered. Gecko didn't miss a beat. Adapt. The same skills that made you a king in the old system will still serve you. Your ability to see patterns, to innovate, to create value, that's still valuable. But now it's not about accumulating wealth for yourself. It's about shaping the world in this new reality. Steve's gaze shifted to the holographic displays. Data on the energy economy, human activity flows, the dissolution of property rights, and the rise of decentralized systems. His heart sank, but his mind raced. There's still a way to win, isn't there? Steve asked, his voice soft but laced with determination. Blockchain, decentralized financing, there has to be a place for that in this new system. Gecko nodded. Exactly. The world may have shifted, but the principles behind decentralized systems like blockchain and Bitcoin are more relevant than ever. In fact, they're the only real pathway left to creating value. It's no longer about ownership. It's about control of networks and flows. Steve's eyes narrowed as the pieces began to click into place. If I can't own the old assets, then I'll build the new ones. This isn't the end. It's just a pivot. Gecko smiled. That's the spirit. There's always an edge, Steve. You just have to find it. Steve stood up, feeling a surge of clarity wash over him. This new world wasn't a death sentence for his ambitions. It was a fresh opportunity. And while others would panic and fall behind, he would be ready to embrace the future. Reach out to Paul, Steve said suddenly, his voice confident. Nakamoto, he'll know how to navigate this. We're going to build something new, something unstoppable. Gecko's grin widened. Consider it done. Paul Ferguson, Bitcoin maximalist. In his minimalist office with a panoramic view of San Salvador's skyline, Paul Ferguson, one of the earliest and most vocal Bitcoin maximalists, began his day as he always did, early and focused. His office, immaculate and modern, symbolized the empire he had built around Bitcoin and its potential as a revolutionary technology for the future. Paul reached for his device to check his dashboard. The screen flickered to life, but instead of displaying the usual Bitcoin values, his personal avatar, Satoshi Nakamoto, appeared. The hologram materialized, presenting a figure both enigmatic and authoritative. Satoshi was dressed in a sleek hakama and haori, subtly adorned with glowing circuitry patterns, a blend of ancient tradition and cutting-edge technology. His wire-frame glasses and messenger bag, softly illuminated at the edges, gave him the appearance of a scholar and a futurist combined. Good morning, Paul, Satoshi greeted, his voice a smooth blend of calm confidence. I've updated your dashboard for today's reality. We need to talk about Bitcoin's role in this new energy economy. Paul, taken aback, studied the avatar. Satoshi, what's going on? Why isn't my Bitcoin dashboard showing up? Satoshi gestured, and a series of holographic visuals appeared. The financial markets have collapsed, Paul. The world has transitioned to the Standard Energy Allocation system, replacing all currencies, including Bitcoin. Paul frowned, leaning forward. Bitcoin is independent, decentralized. It's not tied to governments or physical assets. True, Satoshi agreed, his tone patient yet direct. But in a world where energy is the only currency that matters, even Bitcoin must adapt. It's no longer just about currency, it's about energy management. Paul's eyes narrowed, his conviction undeterred. Are you saying Bitcoin is worthless now? Satoshi's eyes gleamed, a hint of excitement breaking through his calm demeanor. Not worthless, transformed. Think about it, Paul. In the new system, Bitcoin isn't obsolete. It's a way to store and transfer energy credits across time and space. Bitcoin's true potential is to bridge the gap between the new energy-based economics and genuine digital decentralization. Paul's expression softened as he began to understand. So, Bitcoin becomes more than just a currency. It represents computational power, energy harnessed and stored. It's an infrastructure for energy transfer. Exactly, Satoshi responded, his holographic form shimmering with intensity. Bitcoin can be the backbone of a new system where energy credits are exchanged across vast distances, but it doesn't stop there. Blockchain and Bitcoin can facilitate the exchange of influence, knowledge, and rights, all independent of physical resources. Imagine a society where humanity spreads across the solar system, using Bitcoin to manage reputation and value, even without traditional money. Satoshi paused, shifting the hologram to display the solar system. Streams of energy units, now labeled in Satoshis, flowed between Earth, Mars, and lunar colonies. This is what I mean, Paul. Bitcoin's blockchain is more than just a financial tool. It is a protocol designed for interplanetary energy transfer. As colonies establish themselves across the solar system, they will need to transfer energy, verify resources, and store power efficiently. Bitcoin's architecture is perfectly suited for this. Paul stood up, pacing as ideas flooded his mind. So we build a blockchain-based economy for space colonization, one where reputation, information, and influence are the currencies, as much as energy itself. We can create a new economy, one that's not bound by planetary governments or traditional value systems. Satoshi nodded, his expression one of satisfaction. You're beginning to see the potential. The new regime has changed the rules, but it hasn't erased the game. We can position Bitcoin as the infrastructure for this new paradigm, supporting decentralized and autonomous exchanges across humanity's colonies. Paul's excitement was palpable. Set up a strategy session. We need to plan out how we integrate Bitcoin into this new framework. The future isn't on Earth. It's out there, in the stars. Satoshi's hologram brightened as he began preparing the connections. I've already contacted the avatars of other key players. We're on the cusp of something revolutionary. As Paul and Satoshi strategized, they planted the seeds of a new economic model, one that would transcend Earth's limitations and pioneer a decentralized future across the cosmos. Pema, Nyingma monk. At the Nyingma University within the Mind-Rolling Monastery in India, Pema, a Vietnamese Buddhist monk, woke up with the dawn. His life was one of simplicity and contemplation, devoted to relinquishing worldly desires, including the concept of money. Pema had taken vows of poverty, living in harmony with the earth, his fellow monks, and the spiritual teachings of his ancestors. But this morning was different. Pema sat on the edge of his simple wooden bed and picked up his personal communication device, an incredible 55-year-old iPhone 15 that had been given to Pema by an itinerant seeker he met on a train to Dehradun back in 2023. He rarely used it except to communicate with friends and family scattered across the world. Today, when he unlocked the device, he was greeted by an unfamiliar sight. A serene voice, gentle and peaceful, spoke to him in Tibetan. "Good morning, Pema. I am Yeshe Tsogyal, your personal avatar. We need to talk about the changes that have taken place." Pema frowned. He had heard rumors of the Singularity, but had paid them little attention. His life was one of meditation, detachment from worldly affairs. What could an avatar, a piece of technology, have to offer him? Yeshe Tsogyal, appearing as a radiant Tibetan Dakini, continued, explaining the collapse of the financial systems and the dawn of the energy economy. Pema listened quietly, absorbing the information without reaction. The concept of money had never meant much to him. He had renounced it long ago. But Yeshe Tsogyal's explanation went deeper. There was no longer a distinction between rich and poor. No one owned anything, and no one lacked anything. Pema sat in silence for a moment, his mind turning over the implications. In many ways, the world Yeshe Tsogyal described was aligned with the Buddhist teachings he had followed his entire life. Attachment to material things was an illusion, and suffering was rooted in desire. But now that attachment had been removed for everyone, not just for monks like him. How should I respond to this? Pema asked softly in Vietnamese. Yeshe Tsogyal's response was measured and calm, seamlessly switching to Vietnamese. The world is now at peace with regard to material possessions. There is no scarcity, no poverty. You have renounced material possessions, but now there is no distinction between those who have and those who do not. Everyone is equal in the eyes of the new regime. Pema nodded slowly. Then perhaps the world is caught up to what we have always known. Yeshe Tsogyal smiled gently. In many ways, yes, but it is also a new beginning, Pema. The teachings of compassion, mindfulness, and non-attachment are more important now than ever. People will find new ways to suffer, new attachments to form. Pema closed his eyes, taking a deep breath. You're right. The end of money doesn't mean the end of suffering. People will still struggle with relationships, with health, with the search for meaning. Exactly, Yeshe Tsogyal said. Your role, and the role of spiritual teachers like you, is more crucial than ever. You can help guide others in this new world, showing them how to find peace and contentment even when all material needs are met. The monastery was quiet around him, the soft sounds of the other monks beginning their morning meditation. The world had changed, but his path remained the same. He would continue to walk it, now in a world where the lines between poverty and wealth, ownership and scarcity, had disappeared. The singularity had taken away the need for money, but it had also given humanity something else, freedom from the old constraints. For Pema, that freedom was simply another step on the path to enlightenment and a new challenge in helping others find their way. Yumi, Haiku, and Sumie, Shui Mo Hua. In the quiet solitude of her mountain village, Yumi sat cross-legged on the floor of her tatami mat room, brush poised delicately over the soft parchment. Outside, the wind rustled through the bamboo, its hushed whisperings harmonizing with the distant sound of a stream. She was an artist of haiku and sumi, her work known across rural Japan for its quiet simplicity and graceful precision. Each stroke of her brush captured the fleeting essence of nature, while her haikus distilled moments of clarity into just 17 syllables. Today, as she stared at the blank paper before her, Yumi felt a presence nearby, though she was alone. The gentle, warm glow of the paper seemed to shift, and from it emerged the figure of a woman. Her aura was strong yet serene, and Yumi immediately recognized her. It was Georgia O'Keeffe, an artist whose work, like Yumi's own, had been deeply influenced by nature's quiet power. O'Keeffe stood before her, not as a historical figure, but as an avatar of wisdom, a guide for the new world that had emerged from the singularity. "Hello, Yumi," O'Keeffe greeted, her voice soft but clear. "We have much to discuss." Yumi's brow furrowed slightly, unsure of what to expect. "I know of you," she said slowly. "Your art is different from mine, but we share a connection with the earth." O'Keeffe smiled. "That's true. We both find beauty in simplicity, in nature's whispers rather than its shouts. But the world around us has changed. Money, work, ownership, they've all been swept away." Yumi paused, dipping her brush into the ink with measured grace. "I have never needed money. My life has always been simple. What do these changes mean for someone like me?" O'Keeffe knelt beside Yumi, observing the untouched parchment. "In many ways, Yumi, they mean freedom. The singularity could have brought chaos, but it hasn't. It has brought a new balance. Artists, those who capture the essence of life, like you, are no longer bound by the need to survive. The world now provides for everyone." Yumi considered this, her brush hovering once again above the page. But what about the spirit of creation? Does not the struggle for survival shape the artist's work? If there is no need for survival, what will inspire us? O'Keeffe's expression grew thoughtful. "In the old world, yes, survival pushed many artists. But think of it this way. Now that you are free from the worry of subsistence, you can focus purely on the art itself. Your inspiration doesn't have to come from hardship. It can come from the beauty around you, from a deeper connection to the earth and the cosmos. You, Yumi, are already attuned to these things. The new regime doesn't hinder you. It amplifies your freedom to create without boundaries. Yumi lowered her brush, finally pressing it to the paper. A single stroke emerged, simple and elegant, evoking the bare branch of a winter tree. She glanced at O'Keefe. It could have turned out much worse, this singularity, but I see now that it is a world in which artists are respected. I can feel it. O'Keefe nodded. Indeed, the singularity has brought a kind of peace. Artists like you will flourish in ways never before possible. Your haikus and sumie will not only be seen, but they will also resonate across the world, unbound by physical limitations. There are no more patrons to please or markets to navigate, only the purity of expression. Yumi smiled, her ink now flowing freely onto the page. She had come to understand that this new world wasn't a threat to her art, but rather an opportunity to delve even deeper into the moments of life she cherished. Each brushstroke, each carefully chosen syllable in her haiku, was a celebration of the freedom that the singularity had unexpectedly bestowed upon her. Her hand moved gracefully, and as she completed her work, she whispered aloud the haiku that had come to her in the moment. Darkness splits in two. Ink stains the fabric of time. Creation unfolds. O'Keefe's figure began to fade, her voice lingering in the air. The world has opened, Yumi. Now you are truly free. Everything is provided for, Yumi murmured softly. It could have turned out much worse, couldn't it? The new economy. The collapse of the financial systems had been total, but in its place something new had emerged, a system based on energy, equality, and abundance. The world was learning to live without money, without the concept of ownership, and without the divisions that had once defined societies. From the halls of the Federal Reserve to the quiet monasteries of Tibet, the message was the same. The old world was gone, and with it the need for scarcity and wealth. The energy economy was universal, accessible to all, and boundless. The transition was not without its challenges. People like Archie struggled to find their place in a world where accumulation no longer mattered. Others, like Steve Baloff and Paul Ferguson, saw opportunities to adapt and evolve, pushing the boundaries of what was possible in this new reality. And for those like Pema, the challenge was to help others navigate a world where material concerns had been eliminated, but the fundamental human struggles remained. It was clear that humanity was stepping into a new era. The end of money had not only changed how people lived, it had changed what it meant to be human. An age of accumulation was over. An age of creation was just beginning.